Hey guys, it's Hex. In this video I want to go over my involvement with the Smashbox team, how that relationship got soiled, and why the box was a very necessary thing, not just for my ability to play Smash again, but for those interested in this type of product. I will always stand by every move I made to get here, as without me and the box team, the consumer would be pigeonholed into buying an incomplete product from a company that is only interested in your money. The Smashbox team has had the audacity to publicly accuse me of only caring about myself and money. I want you all to know that the main reason I don't stream is that I don't feel right about the amount of money streaming yields. Please take that into consideration if you doubt my intentions. This video will prove that I took the absolute most moral route possible with the Smashbox team. For 2 weeks I R&D'd their product for 15 hours a day, constantly providing feedback about improvements that needed to be made. Some of these improvements were so blatantly obvious that most people would suggest them within minutes of using the controller, which is why it means nothing when they say they've been working on this controller for 6 years. Others were more subtle, things they really should have had someone like me on board for a long time ago. Without fail, every single suggestion I made was shot down. Over the course of these 2 weeks, it became clear that the Smashbox team had neither the means nor the intent to change their product. In fact, there was an eagerness to rush a product that they were well aware had tons of flaws, as they likely knew that the fad of an ergonomic controller alone would sell. I'll say it right now, until the Smashbox improves their product, their current iteration is neither an ergonomic controller nor a viable controller for Melee. It is in fact executed so poorly that selling it verges on being a scam. Any top player who has used it will tell you this. Me taking things into my own hands and competing with them was a last resort. I tried to make the box their product until I was at wit's end. The Smashbox team is well aware that they are competing against what their product should have been, a meticulously designed ergonomic controller. There is no doubt in my mind that the Smashbox team is releasing these allegations as a last-minute push to get their Kickstarter funded, as they would have been publicized a long time ago otherwise. Before I continue, I should mention that this will be the first of a 3-part video series. The second video will cover legality, something the Smashbox team is incompetent at discussing. The third video will fully reveal the box and be released alongside a Kickstarter. For your own sake, I urge you to support the box. I hope the remainder of this video shows you why. I first met Dustin Huffer at EVO 2016. He was showcasing the Smashbox, so I stopped by to take a look. He described the product as being like a flattened out GameCube controller, which is exactly what the Smashbox's layout is. I didn't think much of it, as back then I was intent on coming back to Melee with a GameCube controller. 5 months later, I learned that wear and tear over time had led me to the beginnings of basal thumb joint arthritis. Unwilling to quit Melee, I reached out to Dustin on December 21st to give his product a shot. He was nice enough to ship me a Smashbox rather quickly. It would arrive 3 days later. By the very next day, I was giving the layout much more serious thought. The Smashbox was my lifeblood. I had to make it as good as possible. I made a group chat with Dustin Huffer and Gravy. I also invited Cactuar as he was willing to help out. I was shadowboxing with a fight stick I own, envisioning GameCube controller inputs as its buttons. One of the very first concerns I raised was the rectangular 2x4 shape of the top right buttons on the Smashbox. Arcade Pad Design 101 teaches you to arrange these buttons in a way that is shaped for the human hand. I had in fact never seen an arcade pad designed with a perfect rectangle before. For a controller that was supposed to be ergonomic, I was very concerned, and I stressed this to the group. Furthermore, Cactuar and I had talked in private about moving one of the shield triggers to the left hand as well. Imagine playing Melee with shield and wave dash on the same side of the controller. It doesn't take much to realize that this is a bad idea. Things like wave dash out of shield and shine out of shield were very ergonomic. Picture doing those things on this controller while having to hold down your right ring finger. Both would feel much better if this finger was freed up. Aside from the shape of the buttons on the top right, I got to work on their placements as well. In particular, I could tell you without even playing on the Smashbox that the Z button needed to be moved. It was on another planet. Jump canceled grabbing would feel terrible for one. You're assigning a one-frame link to your ring and pinky fingers. Secondly, you probably lose frames initiating it because your right hand is mostly stationed on the top row of buttons. Many things chain from the jump button in Melee, and since Y is your primary jump button on this layout, you tend to station your right hand on the top row. This is also very awkward when you consider the fact that your left hand is stationed on the bottom row. At this point my suspicions had been confirmed. The smashbox I was being shipped was a prototype at best, and at least some obvious changes needed to be made before it could rightfully be sold. I stressed this to Dustin that night, telling him that the three of us in the group chat, meaning me, Cactuar, and Gravy, really wanted to help make this as good of a product as it could be. In hindsight, I was wrong to include Gravy in that list of people. In fact, it should have been more obvious at the time. How the hell had Gravy been playing on this thing for months without making sure obvious changes like these went through? What was his job as their sponsored player? The answer, which will become clearer as I continue, is that none of the people I was working with actually gave a fuck about how good the product was. Nonetheless, I stressed to Dustin that he shouldn't rush the product. I was told that it is very far in development, and that I should have an open mind with the layout as I've made it too. This would become a recurring trend. Minutes later, on the very same night, yet another major flaw occurred to me. Nairing on this controller was terrible. The A button was directly under the Y button, which would force you to have your fingers positioned like this to do quick nairs with low jump squat characters. Needless to say, there are better ways to do this. Cactuar, who had already used a smashbox, confirmed that this motion was in fact terrible. I brought this up to Dustin, at which point I was told that the straight layout is comfortable for doing this. It was at this point that I began to realize how detrimental it was to the product for its lead designer to be someone with zero Melee experience. I have 12 years of competitive Melee experience, yet I was repeatedly being shot down by someone who doesn't play the game. Something was fishy. In addition, Dustin told me that it will be nice to go over this and compare to me and Cactuar's conclusions. I don't really know why I was even told this, as this implied that the Smashbox's design was actually tentative. I would soon learn that it was not. At this point I was beginning to dislike the predicament I was in. I expressed this to Gravy that same night. He said, "Your input is most important for Melee community support," to which I told him, "I know, but I want the first run of boxes to be good. I don't want an improved version to be released shortly after the first run." I knew that if this product brought me back to Smash, I would unavoidably become its poster boy, and I simply could not back it in its current state. Furthermore, I was not okay with this product being sold to Smashers. As I said in the intro, the concept of the Smashbox is revolutionary, and something our game has needed for a long time. It was, in my opinion, very immoral to sell something executed this poorly just by riding off of that hype. On December 24th, I received my Smashbox in the mail, and I got to work right away. To be exact, I picked it up at around 4 p.m. that day. Within an hour of usage, there was a major ergonomic concern. Take a look at this image of someone multi-shining on the Smashbox reveal video. This is an extremely unergonomic posture. The index finger has to bend at an almost 90-degree angle, which causes shock to be sent up and through the two knuckles of the index finger, causing strain within 5 to 10 minutes of repetition. Considering I was led to believe this was an ergonomic controller, I actually began to think I had arthritis in these joints as well, and that was what was responsible for the strain. I didn't know too much about arcade pads at the time, but I knew from watching Marvel vs. Capcom 2 that players like IFC Yipes often played with gloves. I asked Gravy about this, as I figured the gloves were to avoid strain of this kind. I wasn't looking to trade off my thumb arthritis for arthritis in a different finger. Over the next 2 weeks, the strain I would build up in this finger from playing on the Smashbox began to last for days at a time. I would continually take ibuprofen just to let me play for longer. I would also go on to learn that people only wore those gloves when playing Marvel 2 so that they could painlessly mash buttons during certain parts of the game. The strain I was having was due to the Smashbox's layout. It should not have been happening. By the next day, I had played on the Smashbox enough to know that this product absolutely could not be sold in its current iteration. From both ergonomic and functional standpoints, this controller was a tragedy. Prior to receiving the Smashbox, I hadn't really even thought about the modifiers, but only the bottom one felt decent to press. Trust me, you don't want to be doing motions like these with your left hand during a fast-paced game of Melee. In addition, all of my suspicions about the top right were correct. Quick nairs were a nightmare, and they also awkwardly felt different from doing the rest of your aerials. The Z button wasn't viable. I in fact didn't even bother to use it while I was learning the smashbox. It not only felt terrible, but you blatantly lost so many frames doing a jump canceled grab from there. Shield tilt was a button I knew could be implemented in a much better way. In general, it wasn't viable to operate shield with the right hand. Motions like shine out of shield followed by wave dash felt like they clearly had not been tested. Holding down your ring finger to shield was actually worse than I thought it would be. Over time, out of shield options would give me very painful jolts that would shoot up my ring finger. I brought these things up with Dustin, and this was when catastrophe struck. Dustin told me that significant changes and gigantic changes will push the product back by at least 6 months and require a huge marketing effort to go alongside it. The current design has been the way it has for years at this point. Immediately, I took a closer look at my faceplate. It was in fact drilled on. This box was no good for prototyping faceplate changes. The Smashbox team was insane enough to think that they were going to nail the design of this product on the first go, and they had lined up factories to produce this faceplate. Their current design had also been the way it has for years at this point, meaning no effort was being made to improve the product. Dustin also said that these factories would somehow take 6 months to change the faceplate if needed, which is a complete lie. I asked him if he was even able to simulate other layouts or if I was just wasting my time. He told me that we can using printable button layouts. It turned out that they had used cardboard boxes that they had hand-cut holes into to design their product. I can tell you that the Smashbox team is completely insane for not having access to a laser cutter, which is an absolutely necessary tool for R&Ding something like this. Ever since the box team was founded, we've gone through at least 50 laser cut faceplates, sometimes spending days at a time theory crafting to optimize the functionality of a single button. Some faceplates were made just to move buttons by a fraction of a millimeter. No such effort was ever put in by the Smashbox team, and you should not be deceived by their claim that they've been working on the Smashbox for 6 years. Dustin also, as usual, told me that he doesn't agree with my layout changes anyway. The Smashbox team's behavior began to feel like a very suspicious attempt to protect the status quo. I began to wonder if there was an ulterior motive. Was this product intended to do what it was supposed to, or do these people just want money? This was the product line that was responsible for me being able to play again, so I felt indebted to them, and gave them the benefit of the doubt. I did not give up, though, on attempting to convince them to change their product, even if it meant delaying it. Over the course of the final 10 days, I sent notepad drawings, MS Paint drawings, YouTube videos, and explanations detailing changes the Smashbox needed. Dustin was often impossible to reach. I would sometimes wait until past midnight to get in touch with him, but I dealt with it. I would eventually learn that these efforts were futile and that Hitbox was dead set on selling their current layout. On December 26th, I came to Dustin with the proposition of a business partnership. This was of course presented as me being money hungry by the Smashbox team in the article that was written about me. For one, anyone who thinks I got involved with Smashbox for monetary reasons is absolutely insane. I got involved with Smashbox so that I could play Melee again. It just so happened that Smashbox turned out to be a brand that was in deep shit on so many levels, and I'd been working 15 hours a day to bail them out. They were on the verge of selling a product so poorly made that consumers would have felt scammed within minutes of using it. Furthermore, the pending legality of their controller for tournament play was and still is looking grim. Gravy and Hitbox Dustin had gone on an MIOM talk show and done an incompetent job of defending their product's legality that convinced nobody. I was at the time working on legality videos which Gravy told me not to release, as the legality debate had already been won. The legality debate has absolutely not been won, and the Smashbox team, well aware that they are incapable of argumentation, wanted to avoid reigniting it at all costs. Furthermore, their paid representative Gravy was doing absolutely nothing to improve the product. He in fact wasn't even using the product at local tournaments. He would enter with the GameCube controller so that he could make money. To this day, I have no clue what Gravy did for the Smashbox team. Smashbox tying their product to my story also made perfect sense from a business standpoint. I would have single-handedly been their advertising campaign. This had inadvertently become my full-time job, and what I was offering to this company would have completely changed their fate. By all means, I was a pot of gold that had fallen from the sky and landed on the Smashbox team. I explicitly stated that I was not asking for a large cut. 20% was what I had in mind. Me asking for this is not being money hungry, it's common sense. For the past 3 months, I've worked tirelessly on the Smashbox and box to come up with the best ergonomic controller for Melee. That is work I would have done for Dustin, and that should not go unpaid. I warned Dustin about my concerns, telling him that I feel the current Smashbox is not going to be the success story you're envisioning. I can tell you this myself considering I'm a top player who plans on using this product for the rest of my career. Had it not been for my intervention and sudden involvement with potential design changes, a product very similar to what you sent me would have been released. The design of the controller is a serious contribution. It's everything, really. Is the goal to release a novelty invention that piques people's interests at first, but quickly dies out once they realize it isn't good enough? Or is it to release a product that revolutionizes Melee for good and lets people play the game at top level forever? I just feel like the decision to officially hire me should happen sooner than later so that I don't continue to work tirelessly every hour I'm awake and then receive nothing for it all. The design scheme is only a fraction of what I can do for you. The main thing I need out of all of this is a pad that I feel I can compete with in Melee, but I feel like I would be integral to the design of said pad, at which point I'd feel a bit cheated if it sold and I didn't get a cut. If you want to release something like the current pad, which sadly I do not think I will return to Smash on, I'm not asking for anything. This is your design, I'm not crazy. Something that I worded poorly during this exchange, I have the connections necessary to get the controller legalized for tournament play, was twisted against me in the article posted. The Smashbox team knows that this is not what I meant. I'm absolutely neither stupid nor corrupt enough to think that power within a community would get me into tournaments with an unfair controller. I planned on being the Smashbox team's legality representative, as they don't know how to say much other than no macros equals legal whenever the topic comes up. As I said earlier, Gravy outright stopped me from posting videos I was recording to educate people about various things that are necessary for making an informed decision about the Smashbox's legality. You'll see what I mean when I release my legality video. As time went on, Dustin continually lied to me about wanting the Smashbox to be as good as it could be. I realized that this inherently could not be true, considering he repeatedly used the terms first run or first iteration, implying that Smashbox would have upgraded versions in the future. It is morally okay to plan on upgrading your product in the future, but it is not morally okay to be aware of this many major flaws in your product that can easily be fixed and still release the flawed product. For example, when Microsoft releases Windows 98, it is okay to plan on releasing a superior operating system in the future, but it isn't okay to release Windows 98 when you have Windows XP fucking coded and ready to go. You're basically double dipping your profits by doing this and selling a knowingly inferior product to people. It doesn't matter if negligent decisions, such as securing factories or not having access to a laser cutter, led you to this situation. The end results are the same. Someone like me could have easily been reached out to a long time ago to help you with your product's design. Unfortunately, you will eventually learn that the Smashbox team not only made negligent decisions, but that they are a company with bad intent. A week passes and I have my surgery on December 28th, but even after surgery I continue to use the Smashbox 10 to 15 hours a day by taping directional buttons down on the left side and playing with just my right hand. A lot of the same stuff happens. I make suggestions and they quickly get shot down. On January 4th I had a Skype call with Gravy and Dr. Biscuits that made me want to tear my hair out. Let me clarify that Dr. Biscuits is not an ergonomics expert. If she's an ergonomics expert, then I'm a fucking rocket scientist because I know about as much about building a spaceship as she does about ergonomics. For one, she allowed for the 2x4 rectangular design to go through, which should say enough. But during this call, she repeatedly shoots down designs I sent over, saying that the index finger does too much work. These designs were objective ergonomic improvements over the Smashbox that actually reduced the amount of work the index finger did. While they weren't as good as the designs I eventually came up with for the box, they were a huge leap towards being pain-free, as they should be. Now, the problem with this call is that there was never a purpose to it. The Smashbox team had no intention of changing their product, which I would learn for a fact the next day. On January 5th, both Gravy and Dustin made it clear to me that the product needed to be released. Gravy said to me, "Listen, this configuration stuff has to be decided on, like, this week, so we gotta come to a conclusion." I told him we should not rush this. I asked Dustin what our time frame is looking like, to which he said, "We are on a constraint because it's already way late in the game, and I need to get something going soon. Just need a way to get this finished." This was the last straw for me. These people were only in it for the money. All they wanted to do was sell a defective product with a huge hype train behind it and cash out on the Smash community. People looking to solve their ergonomic problems with this controller were shit out of luck. Same deal for anyone who thought they'd reach a high level of play with the Smashbox. It was too much to ask for these guys to make a simple faceplate change that would have made their product light years more viable. I have, in all truth, never seen a company have this level of disregard for customer satisfaction in my life. I realized that they did not have a patent and sought out to create the best ergonomic controller for Melee. On January 6th, I got in touch with Arham Siddiqui and James Taylor, two engineering students from Rutgers, and we began work on the box. On January 16th, I asked Gravy what the current Smashbox was looking like. In the article they posted about me, this was twisted to lead the reader to believe I was looking to steal layout information. I did this because I was preparing to make the update video I released on January 19th, and I wanted to make sure I had all my facts straight. The box has never and will never take layout information from the Smashbox past the inspiration of an ergonomic controller. Throughout this video, I have shown proof that I intended to overhaul the entire controller and that I orchestrated every single proposed change. To further prove to you that I designed the layout I showed on January 19th, here is a recording of the exact file which was last modified on January 16th at 5:37 a.m. being opened. This was before I spoke with Gravy that day. Now, from January 6th to January 19th, it is true that I kept Gravy unaware that I had mutinied. I did this because I needed to meet with Arham and James, who I had only spoken with over Discord, to see that they were legit. Had I immediately gone to Gravy and broke the news to him, and then Arham and James ended up not being legit, I would have had no one to work with. Considering I was the only person working to put the best possible product in the hands of the consumer, this was necessary for the greater good. I did ultimately apologize to Gravy for this, as it was indeed deceptive. This was all explained to Gravy when he messaged me on January 20th, the day after my update video. Here is what the article written about me shows from the conversation. Now, here are the lines said directly before and after what the excerpt from the article showed. First, Gravy taunts me and sarcastically wishes me good luck with the box, considering we're using an almost exact replica of your layout. This statement alone completely invalidates any allegations the Smashbox team has made regarding the box taking layout information from them. Then, after the part the article showed, I explained to Gravy why I left. I say, really though, please don't try to act like you're the ethical ones when you quite literally had a business plan that involved releasing Model 1 with the knowledge that a Model 2 was in development and on its way. That, combined with you calling me scum for optimizing the product, really makes me wonder if you guys ever wanted what's good for the community, or if this was just a quick cash-in. Think about that for a second. There really only is one motive for Gravy, a high-level player looking to use this type of product, being so against someone looking to optimize it: money. Furthermore, Gravy threatens to beat the shit out of me. On January 25th, Gravy, Dustin Huffer, and his brother Sean Huffer reach out to Arham and James for a Skype call. They explicitly stated not to include me in the call. Throughout this call, my engineers were guilt-tripped to delay our Kickstarter, with the Huffers saying things like, "If we both kickstart at the same time, neither of us will get funded." The contents of this call are concrete proof of what I've been saying throughout this video. Hitbox is content with releasing a knowingly incomplete product. In addition, they explicitly wanted to make a superior product unavailable to customers so that they could sell an inferior one. It stands to reason that had we obliged to delay our Kickstarter, the original iteration of the Smashbox would have been produced, but only because we did not oblige, the Smashbox team is being forced to improve their product. Fast forward 1 month. On March 2nd at the summit, a certain person walks up to me on the first day and tells me that Gravy wants them to take pictures of the box as well as learn more about its functionality, and that they're torn about it. Now, I respect this person for coming clean about this. I don't know if the pictures were ever actually taken, though I don't think they were, because at Frame Perfect 2, Gravy showed up with a certain design layout that I've seen somewhere before. Take a look at these pictures. Now let's rotate them. This is the outdated box layout I revealed on January 19th. Now, take a look at the last layout I provided Gravy with on January 4th. This is the layout I was pushing at the time, which Gravy liked. Back before Box happened, this presumably would have been what they used on the second run of their product, as the first run was lined up for production and simply wasn't changing. So how did Gravy end up with a layout that looks exactly like the one I showed on January 19th at Frame Perfect 2? The answer is, the Smashbox team is directly looking to copy the most recent layouts I come up with, and had they gotten a hold of the one I was using at Summit, Gravy would have shown up to Frame Perfect 2 with a replica of it. Now that I consider this, it is such a coincidence that the box I was playing with at the Summit was never actually shown publicly. In fact, there's no doubt in my mind that had Smashbox gotten a hold of the layout I was using at Summit, and had Gravy shown up to Frame Perfect 2 with it, they would have tried to claim that it was theirs. Well, here's the layout, you fucking frauds. Feel free to steal it from me. I'm sorry I made it a bit harder for you to fuck over the Smash community. This also perfectly explains why Smashbox's Kickstarter reveal video still shows the original Smashbox, which Gravy isn't even currently playing on, and promises that the Smashbox is still a product in development, saying that the final version will look and function different than the product as seen in photos and videos. Keep in mind that there were absolutely no plans to change anything until I got involved. I inadvertently forced Hitbox to release a good product, and for that I have no regrets, as I was not okay with what have happened otherwise. I do want to address some final allegations made at the end of the article, made by someone named Tom Passarelli. This claim states that Hacks had a pretty adamant desire to abstain from entering the legality conversation in the hopes of forcing a recall on Hitbox in the future, with a video criticizing its functionality, suggesting it ought to be banned. Yes, this is true. We had found a feature in the Smashbox's coding that we believed to be bannable, and I advocated not telling them about it. It is not my responsibility to disclose trade secrets to a competing party, especially one that has expressed the intent of plagiarizing my advancements. What is also true is that Tom Passarelli was a friend who I once confided in, who my engineers and I unanimously blocked from contacting us for attempts to undermine our project. Tom Passarelli deliberately contacted me in private to tell me that we ought to get rid of my engineers as they are expendable college students, while contacting my engineers in private and telling them to get rid of Hacks as we can get any other top player to be the box's mascot. Tom Passarelli saw the box as a profitable business endeavor and presumably wanted to take charge of the project in order to secure the largest cut possible. This plan was painfully transparent. I hope that this video sheds some light on the business practices of both parties and helps you make a more informed decision when it comes to who you should support. I'll be the first one to admit that the box never should have had to happen. The box was necessary as a result of the negligence and greed of another company who held a lot of power in the form of a revolutionary idea for our game. Take my actions as you will, but I was not willing to let Hitbox scam the Smash community. I implore you to support the box, as every move we have made has been with the intent of protecting the consumer.